Have you guys ever thought of playing fully blown PC games on Quest without the need for a PC? And I'm not talking small titles either. Titles like The Forest, The Witcher, GTA 5. What if I were to tell you all that is technically possible? Witam wszystkich bardzo serdecznie, I'm Mysticle, and today I'm going to be showing you guys that it is possible to play PC titles on Quest. And I did mention this on livestream. This is actually our first kind of getting into actually trying to run PCVR on this thing entirely standalone. And I mean that. No streaming, all done through x86 emulation and Proton. So, without any further ado, chapters are down below as usual, and let's get right into it. So as I mentioned, this isn't any form of streaming. We are actually going to be running full x86 Steam titles on the Quest. And this has been possible for a while now. Those of you using Emulator probably know that that is a more advanced way of doing what we're going to be doing today, as we are going to be using GameHub. Now, massive disclaimer here right away. GameHub is closed source. And why am I mentioning this? Well, that is because it has two red flags. I'm not going to call them major red flags, but it does have two red flags that I do feel the need to mention before we jump into actually downloading and installing it. First of all, you have to create an account, which I feel is actually fairly standard for today's day and age. However, secondly, if you do want to install any of the titles through GameHub, you will also need to sign into your Steam account, which is going to be the bigger red flag for most people. And the reason this is kind of sketchy is because, well, first of all, GameHub is closed source, and secondly, it seems to be made by some kind of Chinese peripheral manufacturer. So take that as you will. Free games you can still install and play through GameHub without the need for a Steam account, but it does need your Steam account in order to verify that you own the game if you want to install it through their games manager, which, by the way, is the main reason why we're going to be using it. With Emulator, you get a ton of customization options, while GameHub has everything super streamlined. It looks beautiful. It actually looks like a launcher that you could have on, say, a Steam Deck, and launching it on a phone, if you have one of those, pop-out controllers, this could actually be a brilliant alternative for you to do that, if you have a phone powerful enough, of course. Some titles here are mentioned to have perfect compatibility, but foreshadowing that isn't always the case, while others are untested and you're going into unknown waters. Now, I will give you my configuration for GameHub on the Quest because the default one actually doesn't work, and for certain titles you are actually going to need to play around, change things around even more. That, and I do feel the need to mention that there is always a possibility the game will just never launch. After all, this is emulation, so you have to be prepared for that. Like a story about my uncle here just hung forever. Okay, now with all that out of the way, let me show you guys how you want to install GameHub if you don't really care about all the red flags. First of all, you are going to need to have some sort of file manager installed on your Quest. Video about that right up here in case you don't. And after that, it is as simple as downloading the APK file from the GameHub website and going to that file manager and installing it. Very, very simple. After you launch it, you will need to create an account. You cannot use Google here because Quest doesn't have Google Play services, but you can create one through email. After you're done that, you will be greeted by the nice slick interface of GameHub. And in here, once you find a title you want to download, like for example here you can see The Witcher, says it has perfect compatibility, you can just press install title. Then it will ask you to sign into your Steam account so that it can verify that you do actually own this title. This is a one-time thing. You only need to do it once and never again. And once you sign in, it'll add the title to your library and begin downloading. You obviously need to make sure you have enough storage on your Quest to do this. On my phone, it was actually unbelievably simple. There's a lot of customization settings that you can play around with in GameHub. Obviously, for emulation, this is usually necessary. You can either use Wine, which is most people know of, for running Windows software on Linux, or for games nowadays, you can use Proton, which is developed by Valve and actually works amazingly well. It's probably what they're going to be using on the deck card, and it is what they're using on the Steam Deck. So for the most part, I did try my best using Proton. So for this, obviously you could connect a keyboard and a mouse through USB, but I opted to go for the PS5 controller. Just a lot easier. Quest supports it right out of the box. I mean, it would support mouse and keyboard as well, but this is wireless and was just the easiest way of doing things. And after connecting that, GameHub recognized it, no issues whatsoever. The very first title I decided to try was actually an untested one, but it is one we tried on live stream and it worked rather well on my phone. and that is the Forest. So launching the Forest with the default turnip GPU driver did not work at all. The game instantly crashed and didn't even throw me into the desktop. So there I knew I had to start playing around, because on my phone that worked flawlessly, no issues, threw me straight into the game, no problems whatsoever. On Quest, all I had to do was switch to the latest Adreno driver, and once I did that, the game actually launched. Now, mind you, I was recording at the same time here, which did make the Quest work rather hard. The proof of that was the fact that the fan had turned on and was basically going full blast. But something else that surprised me quite a bit was that the game actually ran worse than it did on my phone. And I don't have any sort of gaming phone. I've just got one with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, a Xiaomi 13 Pro. And I know for a fact part of that was because I was recording. The second I stopped recording, the FPS did jump. But I wouldn't say it jumped to console level quality, probably much closer to something like 25 FPS at most. So not playable here. Even dropping the resolution didn't change the outcome. Perhaps if the Quest supported the turnip driver, this would have worked better, as people seem to have very good results with the turnip driver on other devices when I was checking out other videos on this topic. By the way, results with Wine were identical, as I did try that as well. I also tried changing the Steam client to lightweight, as that is something you can do and is something that some titles will require you to do, but that didn't help either. So unfortunately, The Forest was a no-go. But how about a title that GameHub says has perfect compatibility? So we installed The Witcher 3, which, as you can see here, does have that check mark, and launched it on Quest. And surprisingly, I actually had quite a few issues with this one, as the game wouldn't launch, telling me that file was not found in a fairly funny corrupted manner. So I instead decided to download the title on my computer and move all the game files over to my Quest internal storage, after that editing it manually through GameHub. And that did work. We actually did get the game launched, and we were running it through Proton. Not on the turnip driver, by the way, no games would launch on that. So this was through Adreno 819, I believe. However, the results were pretty terrible. Even if I disabled all of the Quest tracking systems, disabled the background, making it completely black, that did make results a tiny bit better, by the way, I only got about 15 to 27 FPS. And that is if you believe the chart in the bottom left. If you ask me, I don't believe it, simply because if you look at the graph next to it, it is not stable whatsoever. My phone did a lot better than this, so this was not a result I expected. The game was sort of playable if you made the game window very, very small and reduced the resolution to 800 by 600, but that is not a way anyone wants to play. Even though I did actually end up going through the tutorial like this, just to make sure that it was possible and wouldn't end up crashing. I tried multiple resolutions, disabled everything I possibly could in graphics settings, and yet it still sucked. I'm going to assume that this is probably because it has to run hundreds of other processes in the background constantly, making it actually have less raw power available to it than something like a phone. After all, it is running tracking systems. It's running the home constantly in the background, the shell, the hand tracking, and I assume that is truly what was dragging the Quest down. Now, as a final Hail Mary, I did also download GTA 5, which also seems to have perfect compatibility. However, results here were disappointing to say the least. So, what does this mean for our hopes and dreams of someday possibly being able to use Proton to emulate the Steam VR layer on a Quest? Well, that dream isn't entirely gone. While it is going to prove more difficult, now that I know what I know, I'm not exactly willing to give up. After all, even if I get the thing launching at 144p, I'm going to call that a success. A success that someone else can possibly build upon. It's not going to be playable, it's not going to be fun, but it is going to be a starting point. And I assume that if we ever get bootloader unlocked on Quest, and people get their hands on whatever operating system the Valve deck card is going to be running, we're going to get an unofficial port, because that is usually what ends up happening with these kinds of things. But as for right now, I am slightly confused. as to what I should do next. We're probably going to be checking out Winolator XR in a future episode. That, and of course, I'm also going to try running SteamVR on my phone and streaming that to the Quest, because that could also be interesting. If you guys know what is happening here or have a better explanation for why the Quest did so badly, do let me know down in the comments section below. I love hearing your guys' explanations for these, especially since a lot of you are actually more technically inclined than I am in the realm of x86 emulation. You guys did the exact same thing when we ran PCVR on Windows installed on my phone, so hopefully you can do the same thing here, and potentially give us some kind of information that will help us continue along this very crappy journey. So while this may not be the result that a lot of us were hoping for, it is technically possible, and the fact that you can do it on mobile with really good results makes me have hope for the future of running PCVR on the Quest standalone. For now, it's not something I can recommend you do though. I mean, if you are intrigued, if you want to try it out yourself, see if you can get better results, go for it and let me know. However, it's not something I would do if you actually want to have a fun time, at least on Quest. That's going to be it for today's video. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hope you learned something new. If you did, please do leave a like. If disliked it, I guess this button works too, but let me know why down below. If you guys are not yet part of the Discord, make sure to join that, as we are actually having our setup voting on there today. So in case you guys want a chance to vote on your favorite setup from yesterday's live stream, make sure to check that out. And thank you so much to all the patrons and anyone that has bought me a coffee. You guys are amazing. Seriously, thank you so much for your support. Means a ton. Helps keep this channel going. So thank you. And as usual, if you want to be notified about future content coming up on the channel, make sure to subscribe and wait for my next video. Peace.